Hello Facebook, hello YouTube, what is up everybody? This is Ruben and I am back with another Ruben report. For today's video, I wanted to take a different approach for my should you buy a motorcycle to save money on gas video. Mainly because this is the third time that I'm doing this video. I've done it twice in the past, and each time that I've done it, I've always done it with a video of me riding in the background, possibly with some overlay with music in the back, and with a bunch of data. And just looking back at those videos, I see that those types of videos don't really do too well. I'm not sure if it's whether the content or whether it's as far as like what you guys visually see, or whether you guys just like me talking in real time while just sitting in my garage. It just seems like the videos with me sitting in my garage just do a lot better. So I'm going for it, and makes it a lot easier for me when it comes to the editing process. And yeah, we can just get straight to it. So like I said, this is the third time that I'm doing this video. So as far as the intro is concerned, I'm just going to go ahead and skip that. If you want to know the intro, you can check the other, 2 installments of this video. But we're just going to get right into it. So this year, as you guys have probably seen my previous video, you guys know that I've ridden this motorcycle this past year for over 9,400 miles, using it as a main method of transportation. So using it to save money on gas, as this video implies. And so with this video, we're going to talk about a lot of different things. How much money I actually saved this year, and all the specs and statistics, what you would expect with a video like this. Again, it's the third time of me doing this. So again, we're just going to get straight into it. We're going to set a baseline first. So the vehicle that I was replacing when it came to me riding this motorcycle, I was replacing my pickup truck. And my pickup truck, it got and still gets 13 miles to the gallon, which was the main motivator for why it is I wanted to buy a motorcycle in the first place, to save money on gas. So the baseline, or rather the average price for gas in my area, was around $4.99. So that's consistent, the same value from the last video. And I expected, or I was estimating, that I was going to ride 13,800 miles this year, right? So originally from my last video, it was 13,200 miles, but I went ahead and added 600 miscellaneous miles. These miscellaneous miles are going to the grocery store, running errands, doing, again, miscellaneous things around the city. So I added that extra 600 miles a year, which was about 50 miles a month, just for any, again, miscellaneous activity that I would do throughout the month, which averages out to around 37.8 miles a day. Okay, so with that amount of mileage that I was expecting to have to commute this past year, had I driven my pickup truck that entire time and did not have a motorcycle, I would have spent, driving 13,800 miles a year, spending $4.99 per gallon, I would have spent $5,297.08. Right, so almost $5,300 in gas for the entire year had I used my pickup truck. Okay, which averages to about $14.51 a day. And now we're going to talk about the baseline for the KLR. So throughout my testing and experiments that I've done, we have gotten an average of about 45 miles to the gallon with riding the KLR. It has gone all the way up to almost 54 miles to the gallon in certain situations, and all the way down to 41 miles to the gallon, really hauling it on the freeway. So I just tend to just park it at 45 miles to the gallon. That seems to be my general average because of the nature of how I was riding this bike. Very mixed. I would ride on the highway, ride on the back roads, ride in the inner city. It would be all over the place. So we just parked it at 45 miles to the gallon for this tally. And with that 45 miles to the gallon, riding the exact same amount of mileage, 13,800 miles estimated, I would have only spent $1,539.26 for the entire year. Okay? So in comparison to the figure of almost $5,300 for my pickup truck, and now having a little over $1,500 with my bike, I could have saved $3,757.82. Okay, so almost $3,800 almost could have been saved by just on the gas savings alone. Okay, which is pretty significant, right? Which averages the amount that I would spend in gas in comparison to the pickup truck. I would only spend $4.19 a day versus $14.51. So that's a savings of $10.32 every single day. If you watch my previous video, my final review video on my KLR 650, you would know that this past year, we actually didn't reach the expected mileage of 13,800 miles. We actually only reached 9,405 miles. So theoretically this year, we have a hypothetical downtime of 31.8% and a 4,395 mile deficit. Okay, now those hard numbers don't really tell the whole story. If you guys have been keeping up with the update videos that I've been doing throughout the year, whether it would be the 3-month update, the 6-month update, or even again this very recent video that I just released, the 1-year update, you guys know I no longer worked at my previous job position. And that job position was the place I was commuting back and forth from, which is the reason for the mileage being so high as it is. So with that need to commute being removed, naturally throughout the later end of the year, the mileage dropped significantly. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the numbers, specifically accounting for the months that I was actually using this bike to commute during the months where I was working at my previous job position. We're going to adjust the expected mileage and also even adjust the ridden mileage as well, because there was some mileage that I also did after I left. So we're going to account for all of that, and we're going to go over those numbers one more time. Okay, so for the adjusted time window of operation for my KLR 650, instead of it being the full 365 days, It was actually shortened down to about 8 months, which is 243 days. Okay? And out of those 243 days, I also subtracted 32 days, mainly due to the days where I either worked from home, so there was absolutely no need to, commute to work for various reasons, whether it was weather storms during the winter months, or whether I was sick, or just a holiday, or whatever it may have been. It was just days where the commuting wasn't necessary. So there were 32 of those days last year during that time frame of operation. So with that being said, our adjusted time window is only 211 days. And during that 211 days, I was expecting to reach 7,976 miles. Now, the amount of miles that I actually rode and achieved during that time frame of 211 days was 7,822 miles. This puts us into a 154 mile deficit. So there's a variance of 154 miles between the expected and how much was actually ridden. Or this would also equate to about 4 days worth of downtime. Okay. That also equates to a downtime percentage of about 1.9%. Okay. So, and I would equate most of this due to the voluntary choice for me to put the bike, or allow the bike to be down for the time. I think it was between like around March when I did the suspension upgrades and everything else. If you guys watched my review video, or even watched my video where I did those types of upgrades. And there's also days where it wasn't necessarily like a winter storm or what have you. It was just heavy rain during that day, and I just decided to drive my truck instead of riding my motorcycle. Days like that where I wasn't forced to stay home, but I just decided to drive my other vehicles anyway. Those are also days where I lost out on saving money on gas. So overall, when it comes to the amount of days where I was able to actually stay home, or where there was winter storms, versus the amount of days where I either had the bike down or even just decided not to ride the motorcycle due to comfort and safety reasons, it almost evened out. Almost. So we have a little bit of a deficit, which is the 1.9% of downtime. So now with all of that out of the way, now we're going to answer the big questions. How much money did I actually save this past year riding this motorcycle in comparison to driving my pickup truck? And where are we at with our return on investment threshold with this bike? And so we're going to break this down into two different categories. One, I'm going to judge the adjusted time frame that we just discussed. And then I'm also going to discuss in the grand scope of how many miles I did throughout the entire year. So starting with the time frame where the bike was actually in operation. This was for the 8 months or 211 days or 243 days. Throughout that entire span, when I rode my bike, we rode 7,822 miles, as we stated before. And with the average gas price of $4.99, we spent $867.37 throughout that adjusted time span, those 8 months that we just talked about. That's with the bike. Had I drove my truck instead of riding my bike during that adjusted time span, I would have spent $3,002.44. And so with the time span of those 8 months where the bike was in operation, being used as a commuter bike, specifically, I saved $2,135.07 during those 8 months, which is incredible. We have ridden more miles than that, though, but I just wanted to point that out just for that time span. Okay. Now, when we expand it to the entire year, because the bike, although again the necessity to commute back and forth from work was removed, I still use the bike to go everywhere that I needed to go. Okay, so throughout the entire year, I rode in total 9,405 miles. And with that 9,405 miles, in total, we spent $1,042.91. So, in comparison to my pickup truck, this year, I would have spent, had I drove my pickup truck instead of driving my bike, the 9,405 miles, I would have spent $3,610.07. Okay, so for the entire year, but with gas savings alone, we have saved $2,567.16. That's also huge. But guess what? It's not over yet. Because not only this year did I save money on gas by riding my motorcycle, in comparison to using my pickup truck, because I decided to utilize this motorcycle to do food deliveries, I also made money with this bike. So I didn't do DoorDash and Uber Eats very much last year. I did it for a little season, but still I made over $600, a little over $600, $628 to be exact, doing food deliveries. So that brings our total savings and earnings, just profit with this bike, up to $3,195.16. Sorry, which is fantastic. So, what does that mean for our ROI threshold? The initial purchase price of my KLR 650. This is when I bought it secondhand from the very nice gentleman that I bought it from. I only paid $2,200 for it. Now, in my old video, my second video that I did, I stated that the build price at that time when I did that video was around $3,100. That was after I did quite a few upgrades really, but it wasn't completely done yet, right? And if you guys watched my very recent review video, you guys saw the extensive list of upgrades that I've done with this bike. I have like 34 or 35 upgrades. Some of them were already on the bike when I bought it. Many of them I've put on there myself. So the bike now, as it sits, is I tallied up everything that I spent. It comes out, the full build cost comes out to around $3,623. So a little over $3,600, which was around what I had initially anticipated during my, I think, comparison video that I do with my other bike. So not too bad. So how did I buy a $2,200 bike and then put $1,400 of upgrades into it? Well, that's just the thing when you buy a KLR. They are highly modifiable. You can change almost anything you want to make it your own, and that's exactly what I've done. So what does that mean for our ROI threshold? Well, with the amount of savings that we have reached so far, along with the earnings that I have received, we're doing DoorDash, we only have $427.84 to go, left to go. I won't necessarily say that I'm going to continue doing DoorDash with this bike. I might, but that's the amount of money left to either earn or save. If I go the route of saving, that means I'm going to need to ride the bike another 1,567 miles, which on the odometer, I would need to ride this bike to around 10,972 miles. And we're very close. We've already done, a little more than 9,400 miles since my review video. It's just a little bit more than that. So we're close. So with tallying up all those results, I am very pleased with the outcome of last year. Riding this motorcycle as a main method of transportation. It was very astonishing to not only be able to save as much money as we did, but what made this possible was basically everything that I was talking about in the second video that I did, where I really hammered in the necessity, the absolute necessity for reliability. That is the only reason why the bike done so well this past year. Only, hypothetically speaking, 1.9% worth of downtime, which means the 98.1% of the time, every time that I came into the garage and rolled the bike out, turned the key, fired it on up, I was able to go exactly where it is that I needed to go. Okay? Which is pretty darn good for a bike that is, well, almost 19 years old now. Pretty darn good. And if I'm comparing this to the motorcycle that I had before, when I was talking about my previous videos, statistically speaking, the KLR did 18.5 times better. 18.5 times better reliability-wise than my previous bike did, which was my CSC RX3, the Chinese bikes. So this just goes to show, again, not only was it a theory, but having actually ridden the bike for a year, having actually gone through the trials and tribulation and actually utilized this bike, I was able to prove how necessary reliability really means to making this ideal of wanting to save money on gas truly possible. Because you can't save money on gas if the bike is constantly down and you're forced to drive your other vehicles anyway, right? Generally speaking, motorcycles are going to be very high maintenance vehicles, especially when it comes to like this bike, for example, a much older bike. There was definitely, if you guys watched my review video, you guys saw my maintenance log. The amount of maintenance that I did, literally almost every week or every 2 weeks, a lot of it was just normal stuff. But there was also a lot of things in there, again, like reliability upgrades that I've done, or just, replacing bolts or other just miscellaneous things. Again, nothing too serious, nothing too out of the ordinary, but it was still very, very involved in comparison to like driving a car. And that's something that you need to be willing to do if you want to make this possible. Okay. I know if you are utilizing a motorcycle that is not as old as this, possibly also even something that's just more modern and much more capable, like let's say an Africa Twin or something like that, something that just doesn't need to be attended to as much, then the maintenance will be lower. But also reaching your ROI is going to be much more difficult. Okay. Another factor of why I was so successful last year, or even am so close to actually reaching my ROI threshold, is because the bike was also so cheap. Okay. And a lot of these aspects, whether it comes to the reliability, when it comes to performance, and all the other different things that we talked about, I talked about a lot of these aspects in the previous video, so I don't really want to go over them again in this video. But I really wanted to touch on, how happy I am that we've been this successful this past year, and really harp on the factor or the reason why we were so successful. So if you really want to utilize a motorcycle to save money on gas, reliability has to be your number one priority. Okay? It has to be your number one priority. Your miles per gallon or your fuel efficiency is still important. It's still important. But regardless if you get 90 miles to the gallon or 50 miles to the gallon, 45, doesn't matter. If the bike is down, you're not saving money on gas. All right? So you're going to have to balance or decide what is going to be, what's going to fit your needs and your expectations when it comes to that. All right, so towards the end of the video here, I'm just going to revisit my ranking scale, specifically when it comes to my KLR. In my previous video, we rated 6 different categories, which were reliability, performance, convenience, comfort, safety, and then overall value. And breaking down each one of those categories, reliability is specifically, how reliable the bike has been the past year. And this is really relating to either reaching or exceeding my expected threshold of 5% downtime or less. Also relating to how easy it is to do maintenance, how easy it is to find parts, how cheap it is to maintain, things of that nature. In my previous video I rated a 10, and in this video it is still a 10. it wasn't just theory. Now having lived it, yes, this bike has been an absolute just rock solid performer in the reliability category. I mean, there's really no surprise here. It's a KLR, right? These bikes are known as like the cockroaches of motorcycles. They're unkillable. It's proven that to me. And although it has its quirks and it has its faults, nothing out of the ordinary, and nothing really that stopped this beast in its tracks from me riding it when I needed to ride it. So 1.9% downtime is absolutely amazing. We passed that bar of being under 5% with flying colors. Maintaining this bike has been extremely cheap. Rotella has been my go-to when it comes to oil. Oil filters, extremely cheap. Air filter, I bought just one of them. I've been cleaning it every now and then. You guys, again, if you guys have seen my actual maintenance log, you guys will know that how I've been maintaining this bike. The only real issue that I've had with it was some bolts, or really just fasteners across the board, either falling out or just going missing, and some aftermarket pieces. But that's not the bike's fault. Its original design or the OEM parts haven't really failed me. So now we move on to the performance category. In my previous video, I said 10 out of 10. And with the performance category, I think we graded it based off of fuel economy, off of capability, which comes to like, can I go on a highway? Can I not go on a highway? And I think it was also low capacity, things of that nature. Again, in my previous video, I gave it 10 out of 10. In this video, I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. I'm gonna be a little bit more conservative there. Having ridden this bike now after a whole year, 45 miles to the gallon average, it's not bad. Could be better. It's slow, right? Can you go on the highway with a KLR? Yeah, you can. You can go 75 if you want. I wouldn't advise it, but you can. You can definitely go on the highway with a KLR. It's not a problem. The bike does much better if you're on the highway anywhere between 65 and 70. And it truly is at home on the back roads, doing anywhere between 50 and 60. I mean, that's just the absolute sweet spot. So, overall, it's not perfect. There's definitely many other bikes out there that do way better in the performance category, in the performance arena. So I'm not going to rank it up as high as those bikes, but it's definitely not lacking. So we have an 8 out of 10 there. In my previous video, I gave it a 9 out of 10 for convenience. And in this video, or let me describe that category one more time. The convenience was more about like lane splitting ability, how heavy the bike is, right? How easy is it to handle and maneuver, right? How many features can you put on it to do certain things, right? I said 9 out of 10, and I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna keep that number, 9 out of 10 as well. I have put so many upgrades onto this bike, like you would have not imagined, right? There really is no upgrade that you can think of convenience-wise that isn't available for the KLR. Okay. The only thing that is working against it, right, is that it's a top-heavy bike. Okay, it can get very unwieldy sometimes. I'm a very tall guy, big guy. I can handle it, but it's not perfect. All right. So convenience-wise, lane split's great. Again, you can put whatever upgrades you want onto it. Center stand, big windscreen, you got, heated grips, whatever. I think I'm getting into another category now, but, panniers, all this stuff. The sky's the limit. Okay. Next, we have the comfort category. In my previous video, I rated this bike a 10 out of 10. In this video, I'm going to rate it an 8 out of 10. Okay. Now, when it comes to the comfort category, it is true, in which I've also done. Matter of fact, no, I'm gonna make it 9 out of 10. Sorry, not 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. When it comes to the comfort category, especially before I changed out the suspension and put the drop pegs on the bike and the extended shifter and the bar risers, before I did all of that, it was a pretty harsh ride, and I think I rated, in my previous video, I rated it 10 out of 10 because I knew that at some point that I was going to be able to do some upgrades on the bike that was going to make it more comfortable for me. Now, having done those upgrades, it definitely has improved, but it's still a 650 single thumper bike. It still rattles and shakes, not too violently, but enough that bolts go missing. Okay, so for my height and my size, I've been able to modify the bike to fit my personal needs very well. I've made it very comfortable for me, but I know it's definitely not better than like a BMW GS or a Honda Goldwing. I just don't feel comfortable giving it a 10 out of 10. That just feels very disingenuous. Okay. Next category is going to be safety. Safety, I rated it 3 out of 10. Okay. And I still stand to that, right? I still stand on that ranking, 3 out of 10. So with 3 out of 10 on the safety, the reason why I rated it so low, well, one, I initially was going to rate, and especially in my previous video, I was initially going to rate this bike a 1 out of 10 because at the time I did not have the upgraded front brake rotor. Okay. And I changed it to 3 out of 10 because I knew that I could put the front brake rotor on there to make it stop a lot more efficiently. And which I have it on there, or have had it on there now for quite a while, after the release of that video. And I still stand on that. I still stand on the 3 out of 10 rating. It's definitely stops a lot better than stock, but it's still a bike without ABS. There's little, it's a bare bones bike. It's made with 1980s technology. Even with the upgraded suspension and all this stuff, I still don't have hazard lights. I'm pretty sure I can do some type of modification to get those. I did put a flashing, blinking tail light there. I just would have to say, bikes that have rider modes, traction control, ABS, we're just going to be a lot better in a safety category than this 2005 KLR 650. So it still stands with the 3 out of 10 ranking in the safety department for me. And then lastly, the last department is going to be value. And my last video, value was about the total package, right? Considering all the categories, especially when it comes to the initial purchase price and the ROI threshold and all the categories that we just discussed as far as performance and reliability, all that, for the purpose of wanting to use this bike as a commuter bike. Value wise, for the value category, I rated it a 10 out of 10, and I still stand by that ranking. It is still a 10 out of 10. This bike, understanding that it is, well, anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000, depending on where you live. You can get one of these bikes for very cheap. Upgrading it, depending on what your needs are, can vary, can make that price go up or down. You might even be lucky to buy one that's already built out for you. So between that $2,000, $3,000 price point, there really is no other bike out there that I can think of that is as reliable, as capable, as versatile, as modifiable, potentially very comfortable for you if you modify it in the proper way, is going to get decent gas mileage, and as we have proven with this video, will actually give you a return on your investment if you play your cards right. So I absolutely still stand by that 10 out of 10 ranking. It is the absolute best bike, in my opinion, that you can buy, anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000, for the purpose of wanting to utilize it as a commuter bike, especially for people who are as tall as I am, being 6'5". Okay. Now, there are other bikes that you can consider depending on what your expectations may be. Maybe you don't need to go on the highway, right? You want to get way better gas mileage. There's bikes out there that are also extremely cheap. I think the XR 150L. I remember that name. I couldn't remember it in my other video. The Honda XR 150L that just got released by Honda. That is literally Honda's version of like the Hawk 250. All right, the very popular dual sport Chinese bike. Well, Honda released their bike, which really was in existence before those Chinese bikes were in foreign countries. They just finally brought it to the US market. And you can get that bike for around I think around $4,000 out the door, possibly even less depending on where you live. It's a steal. And you can get almost 100 miles to the gallon with that bike. All right. But with it being a 150L, you're definitely not going to be going on the highway with that thing. And then there's other bikes, again, depending on your needs, that you can still get on the used market, especially if you're not as tall as I am, like a SV650. Okay. An SV650 will, in my opinion, is actually superior commuter bike to a KLR 650. It just doesn't fit me. It's too small. So there's a lot of other bikes out there that you can get for a decent price, $5,000, $4,000, $3,000 and below. That's going to be a really great value for you. But for that $2,000 to $3,000 price range, with all that considered, value-wise, you're definitely not doing wrong by getting the KLR 650. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching this video. It's been a pleasure to record and go through these results with you guys. Thank you guys for following along with my channel for so long. It's been a long time coming. We're not there yet, but one day I will post not a full video, but maybe just like a short where I finally roll over the odometer past, you know, that 11,000 miles. I think, so I bought the bike when it had 11,600 miles. Once I reach, let's say 22,600 miles. Yeah. Once I reach that amount of mileage, I'll make another video or a little short video, and just showing that I did it, that I finally reached my ROI threshold. So until next time, guys, stay safe out there, and peace.